Dr. Pachauri, Mr. Rana Kapoor, Mr. Mukundan, Dr. Madsen, Mr. Polman, Ms. Annapurna, ladies and gentlemen, and friends from the media, good morning to all of you. I want to start my speech with a personal story. And this is from 30 years ago. Back then, I was a student of chemical engineering at IIT Delhi. And for my final year project, I decided to work on a problem that was very close to my heart because I come from one of India's poorest states, which is Jharkhand. And I wanted to work on a smokeless chulha, which is a smokeless wood stove. So I worked on that. And as a result of that, I got very interested in issues of sustainability and appropriate technology. And I wanted to pursue graduate studies in this area. And I found a wonderful program at the University of Pennsylvania where I could actually do this program. Unfortunately, I was just a student, an humble student from India, and I could not afford to go for this master's program. But what I did was I looked up the advisory board for this program and I found the name of an individual there who was in India, and I said I should reach out to this gentleman. And his name was Dr. R K Pachauri. So I got in, this is 30 years ago. So I got in touch with Dr. Pachauri and I went to speak to him and I told him that I'm very interested in issues of sustainability and appropriate technology. And I would like to get a letter of recommendation from him for this master's program. He was very gracious, he heard me out. And he wrote a letter of recommendation which led to a scholarship at the University of Pennsylvania and then launched me in my career. So I'm of course very, very grateful for Dr. Pachauri for having done that. And so when he asked me to speak at this conference, you can well understand I couldn't say no to him. And of course, Dr. Pachauri in all these years has helped countless others as well. So thank you, Dr. Pachauri, for all that you do for us and for India and the world. As you can also tell from the story, I have a long association, not just with appropriate technology and sustainability, but also around the notion of innovation and how to use technology to create products and services which can help make our lives easier. Now, you might understand that if you have a smoky wood stove, it creates a lot of problems. Not only do we have the deforestation problem that Paul was speaking about, but you also create a lot of smoke and a lot of pulmonary problems in the kinds of huts that people have where they're using these wood stoves. So these kinds of innovations, these kinds of technologies can make our lives much easier, but they can also help conserve our environment. So innovation for sustainability is the true need of the hour and the solution to many of the complex problems that we are facing today. And so here I am today from the Ministry of Finance talking about climate and the environment. One might wonder how I or my ministry are connected to this. I often tell different stakeholders that we want to put India on a sustainable non-inflation growth trajectory of 7 to 8% growth. This is not just a political necessity. This is a moral responsibility because we need to have this growth if we are going to be able to find employment for the 10 to 12 million young people that join our workforce every year. Such a high growth path would double the size of our economy in the next decade or so. And India will then emerge as a powerful economic force. And for this, we undoubtedly need to build our productive capacity and we need a veritable supply side revolution in India. But we also need to ensure that our growth is sustainable. None of us have any doubts that our country and the entire world faces a real and credible challenge on the environmental front. At conferences and fora, we can squabble. We can squabble over who has been responsible for global climate change. We can negotiate over who should compensate whom and by how much. But what we all must agree to is that this is a real and significant challenge which every country of the world is facing. And with erratic weather patterns, glacial melting, scarcity of water, the threat is staring us in our face here in India as well. When I see the pollution due to particulate matter here in Delhi, which by some accounts is the most polluted city on the planet, and I see the pollution from coal in my own constituency of Hazaribagh in Jharkhand, it's pretty obvious that we need to follow a low carbon trajectory and work towards a low carbon future. And as Indians, we need to protect our environment, not only because we are a responsible country, but also for our own sake. The high growth trajectory which we envision and the massive creation of jobs towards which we are working will undoubtedly pose challenges to sustainability. And I see three major challenges from an environmental perspective which can prevent us from sustainable growth. It's water scarcity, pollution, and climate change. All of these issues will become more serious as we keep growing faster, and all of them impact our lives in very direct ways. And for the past several years, I don't think we have done enough to promote sustainable growth. So to continue on our growth trajectory, we need to grow sustainably, and we need to ensure it right now. The clock is ticking. And so the question becomes, how do we get to this sustainable growth trajectory? How do we ensure that we are growing fast and at the same time that our growth is sustainable? And in my view, there is really only one answer to that problem. And that answer is innovation. We should not only make in India, but we should also innovate in India for India. It is this innovation which can help us solve our environmental problems and let us grow sustainably. We need to develop a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem which incubates, nurtures, and promotes entrepreneurs who can develop innovative products and find solutions to our problems. If entrepreneurs massively step up innovating in India, I can assure you that the government will back them and provide support. So what do I mean when I say innovate for India? You see, the demands and problems in India are different from what developed countries in the West face. In San Francisco, in the heart of the innovation capital of the world, one might come up with a mobile app which can tell you where your friends are watching the basketball game this evening. But what we need in India is technology and innovation which can solve the problems not of the top 1 billion people of this planet, but the next 5 billion. We might need to innovate to develop technology for our farmers that can provide cheap electricity off-grid, that can result in mini waste disposal systems in every village. This is the less explored territory. And that is where investors and entrepreneurs should look, and that is how we must innovate in India. So today, when India is undergoing a huge transformation, if we can unleash our best entrepreneurs and innovators, we will be able to transform several important areas, such as power, buildings, and transportation. By having distributed solar rooftops in homes and offices, and using wind power to operate irrigation pumps, we can solve the problems of energy scarcity and carbon emissions at the same time. We can have buildings that are energy efficient. We can use LED lighting systems and properly design heating and cooling systems. We can totally transform our transportation sector with the use of electric scooters and cars. If we can improve our public transport system with good trains, metros, and carpools, we can significantly get down our carbon footprint. As a venture capitalist, I have invested in several companies which are trying to solve such problems at the base of the pyramid, and which are examples of sustainable growth. D-Light, a company which I invested in, makes and distributes solar lanterns and solar home systems. Imagine people in disconnected villages getting cheap electricity without the need for a grid, and in a way which is entirely friendly to the environment. When it comes to innovating for sustainability, I really want to recognize the work that TERI has done. For instance, they have done some very interesting work around mini grids, something on which the government and entrepreneurs are now starting to pay a lot of attention. Their smart mini grids, which enable you to balance electricity use, I think is exemplary. Another example that TERI has innovated and is, I think, very well worth propagating and scaling up is around biodegradable plastics, which are based on biopolymers. That is precisely the kind of innovation that we need in India. And that is a great example for all the rest of us to innovate that is really focused in India for India. And I'd like to end by saying the following. Often we are expected to take sides in the debate between growth and conserving the environment. People ask which is more important. It is a false trade-off. And I say that's the wrong way to look at it. Technology and sustainable growth are not in an adversarial relationship. They can be effectively used to complement one another. With clever and innovative technology, we can develop products which promote sustainable growth. And only with sustainable growth can we keep developing better technology. We need a true partnership between business, innovators, and in terms of environmental conservation. And which is why I want to close by saying we truly need to innovate for sustainability. Thank you very much.